What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another car review. This is of course the 2017 Mercedes-AMG E43. Huge thanks to Mercedes for providing me with this very nice E43 to review for you guys today. So about the E43, well, it's this all new model here that slots in between the E63 and the standard E300, and it's really cool. I love the styling here for these all new 2017 E-classes. It's just a really beautiful looking car, you know, very similar to other Mercedes. You know, they have a very consistent design language that doesn't deviate too much, but this does have a lot of cool, unique features to differentiate it from its siblings. So, you know, you have those very cool LED headlights. I especially love, you know, the AMG body kits you have here with the E43 that looks really great. I love the aggressive you know, front bumper there, and this one also has the night package which blacks everything out, so you see those little streaks in the front bumper blacked out. You have the black trim around the windows and the door mirrors and all that, and the side profile of this car looks really good as well, especially, you know, with these AMG wheels that are 20 inches here in diameter and look very, very cool. And going out back, you know, it's again fairly, you know, nice, conservative, classy E-Class like you would expect, but you know, for the AMG version here, you do have the quad exhaust tips and a little bit more of an aggressive looking rear bumper. And overall, it's just a really great look. I especially love this grille you get on the E43s. I like the constellation pattern there with all the little metallic dots. It just looks really beautiful and just kind of unique. You know, it really stands out, I think, and makes a statement. And overall, I think it's just a really beautiful car from just about every angle. Right, for the interior of the Mercedes E43 AMG. Well, these new E-classes are mind-blowingly nice. There's luxury car interiors and then there's Mercedes interiors. Like, I think they're at the top of their game as far as mainstream luxury companies go with interior niceties. I mean, this thing is just so impressive. But we'll start off with the seats. These seats are awesome. They're just the standard AMG seats you get with the E43. And they're so comfortable, you know, they're just nice, soft, awesome Napa leather. It has some little bit of a micro suede kind of going on here on the sides to kind of, you know, help with the grippiness of the seats a tad. But there's just, these seats are so mind-blowingly awesome. So if we go over to the center screen here, there's all kinds of ways you can customize these seats. So, I mean, of course, they're heated and they're cooled, and they have massage function. That's one of the options here on these. But just the adjustment of the seat, the amount of ways you can adjust this seat is just mind-blowing to me. I mean, the lumbar, you can individually pinpoint exactly where you want the lumbar support to be. You can adjust the bolstering, of course, and it goes real tight. It's not like one of those adjustments where it's like, oh, kind of a little bit tighter or wide. It's like this. I mean, I can have these seats so snug that I feel like I'm in the GTC Roadster that I reviewed with the AMG Performance buckets. Like, it'll get that tight where my little frame gets squeezed in by these bolsters. Or you can have it nice and wide, of course, if you'd like to have it on the more relaxed side, but just so much customization. There's 8 different massage functions as well, which I'll be testing throughout the course of the week that I have this vehicle and trying those out. These seats also have the rapid heating feature, so they get hot real quick whenever you want to use the heated seats. The only little thing I can kind of nitpick at is the ventilated seats. So it's cooled, and even on the max setting, I hardly feel anything. So, you know, we'll have to see over the course of the week if that's just my first impression or if it gets better or worse. But just that's the only thing that's a little bit underwhelming about these otherwise amazing seats. Next to the steering wheel in the AMG. Now, this one has the AMG Performance wheel. So it's just a really awesome wheel, but even the standard AMG, you know, E43 wheel is great. But this one has a really great 9-3 grip. You know, you get more of the Alcantara suede stuff here around the grippy part of the wheel. But it's just a nice, thick leather wheel. I mean, really, really thick. And it's got, you know, these nice metal paddles that feel great, nice and thick. Again, straight out of like the Mercedes AMG GTC. And so you have these little capacitive touch buttons here also where your thumbs go. And that controls, you know, both screens. The left one goes for the left screen and the right one for the right screen. But yeah, so nice to have all that, and overall a really great steering wheel. But going to these gauges and this screen, you're just, as soon as you sit down on this thing, you're presented with this massive sea of displays, these huge widescreen displays, 2 of them that are massive, super nice, glossy, high resolution. So these gauges probably rank up as honestly probably the coolest gauges I've ever experienced. There's been a couple that are come close, but this I think takes the cake. So as you can see, it's fully digital, has, you know, the nice readouts there for the speedometer and to tachometer, and then you have all kinds of different ways you can customize this, and that's what I love about it. It is so customizable. So we will first start off, you know, you have the different menus, so you can pull up, you know, your standard trip information, your drive assist info, you know, your navigation, which you can actually display there in place of the tachometer, which is very cool, you know, and looks awesome. You can have your radio, media, phone, all that kind of stuff. There's also a heads-up display, which you can, again, customize in many different ways. There's the AMG Performance submenu you get here, you know, with the E43, and of course you'll also get in the E63, and that gives you G meters, lap timers, boost gauges, you know, all the temperatures for everything you want to, you know, keep an eye on there. And then you can even customize the design of the entire setup of the gauge cluster here. So there's the Sport, which is what I was in, there's the Classic one, and then you have the Progressive one, which is really cool, very futuristic and race inspired there, with just a single, you know, round tachometer there with speedometer right in the middle of it. The only thing, again, trying to nitpick here, the thumb controls here, these little capacitive touch things, aren't as responsive as normal buttons, and it takes sometimes a couple of swipes before it registers what I'm trying to do here, you know, for the gauge cluster. So it can be a little bit distracting if you keep trying to, you know, get it to do something and it's not doing it. But most of the time, you know, if you are consistent with your swipes and stuff, it does seem to pick it up. It's just something that takes a little practice. But as we continue on to the center of the dashboard here, the other massive and super impressive center screen here, which as you can see does the split screen setup, and just has, again, all kinds of different things here that you can display. So you know, obviously you can have the whole thing be navigation, and then it's just this massive display. It just looks so cool, and again, being this very nice glossy screen, it's just gorgeous to look at. Of course, you have your typical radio controls, which are good. You know, everything's controlled here with this command controller that Mercedes has, and you know, the scrolling around and stuff, I still prefer touchscreens personally, but this works well, and this way you don't get fingerprints on this gloriously glossy screen. And then, you know, there's all the other stuff for media, phone. The vehicle settings is where you'll find all that detailed information as far as customizing your seats. Also, there's a dynamic selector, so you can, you know, custom configure all the different parameters of the vehicle for your driving style. You can have vehicle data or engine data, which will give you a real-time view of your horsepower and torque. Overall, really well done infotainment system. And it does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto here as well now, which is good to see. Coming down from this very impressive screen, though, you have these very nice air vents that are metal and just have a really nice resistance to them, even whenever you're swiveling them around to control where you're directing the airflow. It's just really nice. And then you have your typical Mercedes climate controls here, which is, again, very nice. These little metal, you know, levers that you can use to toggle, you know, all your climate controls. And then you have a nice little analog clock and a couple shortcuts there for different menus of the entertainment system. So nice to have all that. And then coming back, you have, like I said, your command controller here. That's also where you'll find your dynamic selector for the different drive modes, manual mode for the transmission, a mode to customize the suspension settings, traction control. On the right side, you have a nice little metal volume scroller, and then your auto stop start, turning that off. And then it also does the automatic parking assist stuff, so it'll, you know, help you find parking spots and park in them automatically. This car has all the tech stuff too. I mean, it's got the Premium 3 package, which I can read off the laundry list of stuff that this thing does, but it's obviously very, very intelligent, nearly autonomous at low speeds, and you know, it can do a lot of the driving for you on the highway and things like that. And so overall, you know, very impressive with all the tech, and I'll go over that a little bit more later. Another very impressive thing I have to mention, because this is a first in a car, is this has the Burmester high-end 3D surround sound system. And the coolest thing about this surround sound system, in addition to the fact that all the beautiful metal speaker grills look great, and from my few miles of driving so far, the sound system sounds spectacular, and I'll certainly be testing that more. But the top speakers up here by the A-pillars, whenever you turn on the radio or turn the car on, these speakers actually twist out automatically, and it does this very cool little dance whenever it comes out, and just super cool. Like, I mean, I don't know if that actually does anything or not, but it's just to have your speaker grills swivel out there for you is just super cool. There's even a speaker in the ceiling of this thing. So, I mean, it's just, this 3D sound system, they're not joking when they say 3D. I mean, literally from every angle, your ears are just, you know, assaulted with sound in a very good way. It's just an awesome sound system. Yeah, and of course, at night, everything gets illuminated very nicely. That's another thing. I mean, at night, this interior is just beautiful with just the glow of lights that kind of run a ring across the front of this interior. It's just really awesome to look at. And yeah, just so much much impressive stuff here. As far as storage space in the E-Class here, it's very good. So you have a large map pocket here in the door with a bottle holder, which is good to see. Coming over to the center here, you have this little center cubby, which has 2 cup holders, which are a decent size. And then you have this little area where it's actually rubberized. You can put a phone in there, and it has an NFC capability. So you can actually, it does wireless charging in here. And I think it actually will automatically pair your phone via Bluetooth when you set it in here as well, if it's not paired already. But awesome to have the wireless charging capability. Again, very high tech in this vehicle. You also do have a USB jack in there if you prefer to plug it in yourself instead, or you don't have a phone that does the wireless charging. And so good to have all that in there. Coming back here, you have the center armrest, which is nice and softly padded with this leather. Feels great. And anyway, you open that up, it splits in the middle, and then you have a pretty nice size cubby there that has 2 additional USB jacks, an SD card slot for the maps there, and a good amount of space in there to fit, you know, sunglasses, whatever you want in there. And so overall, really nice space as well. Backseat space in the E-Class is very nice here. So I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself, I easily have about 4 inches of legroom to spare, and plenty of headroom there. Just a very nice, comfortable backseat, very, you know, softly padded rear seats there that just feel great to sit in, but hold you in well with a little bit of bolstering there as well. And you know, you have a fold down center armrest, which has an additional cubby and also 2 cup holders in there. And then looking towards the front, you'll see your air vents here for the rear passengers, as well as a power outlet down there and a little ashtray type deal. Trunk space in the E-Class is pretty good, so it's not super deep, which is kind of interesting because there is a large storage space underneath of the trunk there. But as you can see, you know, the normal top part of the trunk there, lots of space. It goes very far back. It's nice and wide, so you can easily fit in, you know, large suitcases and things like that with ease. It's again not super deep, so if you want to stack stuff, you're going to be limited there. But as far as, you know, just sliding stuff all the way back, you know, you got plenty of space there, and again, should be able to swallow up 4 or 5 people's luggage fairly easily, and so overall a totally sufficient trunk. All right, so start up and go for a drive. The 2017 E-Class has this very nice new Mercedes key. It's nice and slim and has a nice, you know, metal feeling to it. Just a really nice glossy key. And anyway, it's keyless entry and push button start, of course. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off in the 2017 Mercedes-AMG E43 sedan. So, yeah, first thing you notice about this thing, it is a really just wonderful thing to drive. This one also has the acoustic insulation package, which is like $1,100 of additional sound deadening and like acoustic shielding for the windows too. So everything is super quiet in here. And whenever you're not driving sportingly, it's totally uneventful. It's just so quiet and sedate and calm. So yeah, that's one thing you notice right off the bat. Another thing you notice, I've been driving just about 15 miles so far, so still fairly fresh with my impressions. But one thing I noticed is the visibility is pretty good here in the E-Class, but there is a pretty chunky A-pillar between the actual A-pillar itself, that Burmester speaker, which is very cool, but does kind of sit up there right in your line of sight a little bit, and these side mirrors, which are a little bit large and in my seating position have kind of blocked my view a tiny bit. So that whole section there is just a little more mass than I would like, and again, not ideal for visibility, but totally fine. And of course, like I said, you have all the safety systems to help you out, and nothing that a little peering around the A-pillar can't fix. But otherwise, you know, view out of the sides is very good. View out of the back window is also great here, you know, being just a standard sedan. And one thing, now this has the active bolsters as well, which are there's 2 different settings. You can have it either off or 1 or 2. And so even in this one setting though, every time I even just take a slow corner, it immediately will inflate that bolster on whatever side I'm leaning towards to hold me in, so that my torso stays always perfectly upright and doesn't ever lean really. And so very impressive even at low speeds. So we'll have to see once we get up to some higher speeds how it helps us stay planted in corners. But like I said, with the adjustable bolstering this thing already has, it already holds you in place very well. So I don't even know why you need that additional support, but I'm not complaining. It's pretty cool. All right, so we're gonna put this into Sport Plus mode, and let's turn down onto this back road here, see how it does. And here we go. Ooh, nice. Ooh, man, this thing tears. The E43AMG has a 3-liter bi-turbo V6 engine that does 396 horsepower, 384 pound-feet of torque. And believe it or not, it'll actually get this thing up and going 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds. and it felt quick. I don't know if it felt quite that fast to me from a rolling start there, but still very impressive nonetheless. It's all going through a 9-speed automatic transmission that seems to always be in the right gear so far, and especially, at least in Sport Plus mode here, it likes to keep it in those higher RPMs, which I love. You get some great crackles and pops from that exhaust system, and a really nice V6 sound too that I really love. And even when I'm coasting, it continues to leave it in 3rd gear here, and just lets it just cruise at 4,000 RPMs. The red line of this thing is just over 6,000, so not a huge broad power band, but I mean the torque comes on super early, and so I mean that boost and everything, it just really feels very meaty, and yeah, it's plenty of power to have fun with, I think. But we'll go for another little acceleration here, and again. Yeah, wow, okay, that time it felt a little quicker. This thing is fast for sure. Oh, man. I'm pretty impressed with it. It'll actually do a 12.8 second quarter mile time too, at I think 109 miles per hour, something like that. So very impressive numbers here for a sedan that's pretty large and heavy, by the way. This thing weighs 4,287 pounds. So, I mean, it's not super heavy compared with all the others out there in this segment it's competing against, but I mean, for less than 400 horsepower, to be getting this thing doing 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds when it weighs that much is impressive. But we're going around some tight corners here, see how the handling is, and it feels pretty flat. There's a tiny bit of lean, but I think that's mostly just for comfort, because otherwise it's really flat and composed here. And it's really doing it all without breaking a sweat with these nice 20-inch wheels and tires. We got 245 wide tires in the front, 275s in the rear. They're run flat tires, and they're really a thin sidewall too, only 30 series sidewalls there, so very thin tire as far as sidewalls go, and you can feel that because there is no flex in these tires whatsoever. You really can just feel the suspension doing the work. Another thing, brakes feel great. Have a little bit of dead travel before they start getting into the meat of the pad there, but feel pretty good still nonetheless. And the steering actually feels really nice too, especially in a Sport Plus mode here. It's nice and heavy, but not too heavy. It's actually a perfect weight. I wouldn't even really call it heavy. I would just say it's weighted a little bit, and feels really nice. There's not a ton of feeling through the wheel, but most of these modern steering setups, you don't get a ton of feel anymore since they're all electronic here, not hydraulic like they used to be. But you can still feel a little bit, and I don't think it's numb or anything. It's point and shoot though. You just it just does exactly what you want it to do. It's just so flat and does it all without any fuss, because of course this has the all-wheel drive system, the 4MATIC all-wheel drive that Mercedes has. So it's always putting power, it's I think a rear bias system, but whenever you need those front wheels to come in and help you out, it's very intelligent about doing that, and helping you to get around corners as best as it possibly can. And I gotta say, it's very impressive. I know this is the younger, the littler sibling to the E63. It's not the top dog, but man, it's plenty of fun. I mean, it is plenty of power to have fun with, at legal, normal, sane speeds. I mean, an E63 is so much faster, and that's great, but can you actually use all that power on the street? I mean, it's fun to have nonetheless if you can afford it, but for way less money, I think this is certainly, if you have to even call it a compromise, it is not a compromise in the slightest. This thing is an absolute blast and an animal to drive. Another acceleration. Yeah, and these active bolsters really hold you in nicely. It's not quite as abrupt at the higher speeds here. It's a little more gradual, which I actually like. It just gives you a little extra support there in the corners, and I love it. I absolutely, this whole car is just so cool in so many different ways. So other things here, Sport Plus mode, throttle response is nice and sharp. I mean, as soon as you get into the gas pedal there, immediately starts giving you some power. Not abruptly so, though. I think it's a fairly natural progression still, but nice and sharp and just feels great. And again, that time I went full throttle even before the wheel was straight, and again with the all-wheel drive system, no issues there whatsoever. So one interesting thing though, I mean, I'm not going very fast on these back roads, but if you go even like 2 miles per hour over the speed limit, this little heads-up display will flash at you and be like, oh, you're going too fast. And I mean, every single person that drives one of these is going to, at some point, every single day they drive, go at least 2 miles per hour over the speed limit. No one does exactly the speed limit. So the fact this thing is, kind of pestering me me about going over the speed limit. It's a little bit annoying. There might be some way to turn that off. But anyway, just a minor nitpick here while I'm having a blast on these back roads. And honestly, it doesn't feel as heavy as the weight suggests. You know, I would say this maybe feels about 200 or 300 pounds lighter than it actually is. So they did a very good job here with the suspension to make it very, you know, just agile and athletic. Yeah, diving into corners, it is insane how this thing turns in. For a big, heavy sedan, this thing, it does not feel big or heavy at all. I feel like I'm in something way smaller. It's kind of blowing my mind how well this thing dives into corners. This one is always a challenge for cars. Yeah, it's stuck. It's stuck. A lot of time, other cars will get sideways a little bit around that corner. This thing, no such issue. It is just flat composed, tons of grip here. And again, these tires aren't super wide. 245 in the front, 275s in the rear. So you wouldn't think it'd have gobs of grip, but it does. So yeah, really impressed with this thing. I'm telling you what, every single aspect of this car so far has just knocked my socks off. I am really thoroughly impressed. I think, you know, previously my old benchmark for best handling sports sedan was the Cadillac CTS V Sport, and this feels a little bigger than that. So mentally, it's like, okay, can I do the same thing in this that I was doing in that? But you can, and I'm driving the same way I did in that, and it still does it with no issue. But anyway, one other thing I want to mention here is the manual shifting. So this thing has the 9-speed automatic, and it's a normal automatic. It's not a dual clutch or anything. But it is immediate, really, with downshifts and upshifts. I mean, it's really quite fast. I mean, I don't know if it's quite like, you know, immediate like PDK or something, but it is just a fraction of a second slower. I mean, this is as fast as you're ever going to want. I don't think anyone's going to complain about the speed of the shifts here in this 9-speed automatic. Very fast with its manual shifts, and these paddles are just a joy to use as well. And so overall, just really, again, every single part of this car is so good. But anyway, thanks to Mercedes, I have this vehicle for an entire week, so I'm going to be driving around having a ton of fun, getting back massages, surround sound system. I mean, what more could you want? This is going to be a fun week. And then I'll come back and give you guys my final fuel economy and my thoughts on, you know, other things throughout the course of the week that I noticed, and the price of the vehicle. All right, so I've been driving the 2017 Mercedes-AMG E43 4MATIC sedan here for about a week now, and man, this thing is really nice to drive. It's not perfect though, I will say that. Before I get to a few of my minor complaints, I just have to say this thing is just so nice to live with. All the luxury features, just all the comfort of it and everything. I mean, these massage seats I've been testing throughout the course of the week here, probably the best massage seats I've ever experienced. They're just really a little bit more advanced, I think, than some of the others out there that are a little simpler with the way they do the massage. This actually feels pretty high tech and feels really great. And yeah, but so a couple of the little nitpicky things here about the vehicle that I've noticed here. It's riding on these 20-inch wheels, which are great. You know, they look awesome, but they have, you know, these very skinny tires on them, as far as, you know, very thin sidewall, 30 series of sidewall. And so because of that, that combined with, I guess, what is the AMG tuned suspension, those two things combined to make this a little bit more communicative than I think E-Class owners would want. You know, just, I mean, obviously this isn't the full-blown E63, so, you know, I think being the mid-grade one, it should have a little bit more of a middle-of-the-road ride, and the whole suspension setup is a little firmer than I personally would choose, even in comfort mode here. You know, and that's the nice thing, it's got these adaptive dampers, you can change them, but even in the most comfortable setting, I wish that was a little bit softer. And again, I think that goes back to also the wheel choice. I think there's a 19-inch wheel you can get for these, and I'd be really curious to see how it rides on the smaller wheels with a little bit of a thicker tire on it there. But again, a minor thing. Again, if you're buying the AMG version, chances are you want something sportier, but just be forewarned, it's not a buttery soft ride. I mean, it is very smooth and refined still, but just a little more sports car-like than luxury car, I think, in some ways. So that's the only thing. The other thing, though, is the transmission, which is a little bit on the sluggish, slow side as well. I wish it was a little quicker to respond. If you see, even there, it took a little longer than I would like. You have to give it a lot of throttle input before it gets the idea that you really want to go fast. And like if you're at a dead stop and then you immediately punch it, then it'll automatically know, okay, you want to fly. But otherwise, you know, if you like start going into the gas lightly and then increase your throttle inputs, you know, pretty quickly, then it takes a little bit of time where it bogs down and it doesn't fully realize what you want to do until you're like, yeah, please give me a downshift, and then it won't. So it's I think they, even though this is AMG tuned, I wish that they had tuned it to be a little more sporty. And so it's kind of funny. The suspension I wish was a little less sporty, and the transmission I wish was a little more sporty. But this seems like it's still tuned for the maximum MPGs, and it's just immediately wanting to upshift as soon as it possibly can, and it really wants to rely on that boost of that turbo. Another small thing I can complain about as well, though, is this infotainment system. I love the way that it looks. I love the graphics, and even the command controller I've gotten used to a lot more over the past week. But it's a little slow, and again, I could have given it a pass a few years ago, but here, going into almost the year 2018 here, these cars, most of them have a very quick, responsive, infotainment system. That there is no waiting, basically. This, it's still, every time you turn on the car and start it up, it takes a little while to boot up, and I can see if that's just for navigation, but even just booting up the radio. For example, left the radio on when you got out of the car last time, and then you hop back in, and it's blasting the radio. It takes like a full 10-15 seconds before you have to keep hitting the power off button before it silences the radio for you. So just little things like that every once in a while could get mildly annoying. Just there's no reason why I couldn't immediately mute the radio. That's not a large ask of the infotainment system, but just things like that take a little longer. And then of course, once it's booted up, 30 seconds after you're driving, it's totally fine. It's quick, it's snappy, and there's really no other complaints. Although I will say, whenever you're listening to a Bluetooth audio device where you're skipping tracks, it does have a good 5-second delay from when you actually tell it to skip a track and when it actually does and updates the album art and all that kind of stuff. So again, it could use a little bit of a speed update here for this system, which I wasn't expecting. I was expecting this to be top-notch, no complaints whatsoever, and unfortunately it leaves a little room for improvement still. But I don't want to make it seem like I don't love this car, because I absolutely do. It just sounds so good. I love the snarl of this twin turbo V6. It just sounds awesome. They have a really nice amount of exhaust note you get through the cabin here too, that isn't too much. Over my week of driving here, hasn't gotten on my nerves, hasn't been overbearing for a luxury car at all. It's just a nice amount of sound, and it's really great. But the last two things I want to mention are the price and the fuel economy. First is the fuel economy here. So in my week of driving here, about 156 miles, I've gotten 16.6 miles per gallon. And so this vehicle is rated at 18 in the city. I think it's 26 on the highway for a combined average of 21. And so it fell a little short of that number. So, I was obviously driving it sportingly, but even still, you would think I could get a little closer to the city estimate, even if I was doing strictly city driving, which I wasn't. I took this thing on the highway for a decent amount of miles, maybe a quarter of the time I was on the highway or something like that. But unfortunately, a little bit lower fuel economy. Then the last thing I want to talk about is the price here of the E43. Now, I said how in the very beginning of this review, there are luxury car interiors and there's Mercedes interiors. That is certainly true. This interior is so nice, but you pay for that. And that's why, you have luxury car prices, and then you have the E43. It's a little bit more expensive than some of the competition out there, although it is right in line with some of the others. Just depends on which ones you're looking at. For example, stuff like the BMW M550i is very comparatively priced, very similar in pricing, but that has a twin-turbo V8 engine, but I would argue that doesn't handle nearly as good as this does. But anyway, this vehicle starts at $72,000 roughly, and then this one, as tested, is just over $91,000. So lots of options there. This one has the Premium 3 package, which is like over $7,000. And that package, gives you this Tronic, all the driver assists. That also gives you the massage seats, satellite radio, a couple of other things. If those types of things aren't things you need, if you don't need massage seats and all the safety tech and the advanced cruise control and stuff, then you're looking at a car that's in the low 80s, and so that's a lot more easier to swallow, I think, in this segment than 91. 91, you're getting up to some really impressive stuff. performance-wise or luxury car-wise, you know. So it just kind of depends. I think this car very nicely straddles the two, but I don't think it has the highest performance for the money, but I think it certainly has the highest luxury for the money, and so I think it certainly errs a little bit on the more luxurious side as far as the pricing and things like that go. You're paying, I think, more for this super nice interior than you are for the performance, as impressive as the performance is. And it's not much slower than stuff like the M550i, only, you know, a few tenths of a second slower, in fact. But yeah, all in all, the Mercedes E43 is an incredible car to drive, an incredible car to live with for a week here. It's been an absolute blast. A huge thanks once again to Mercedes for providing me with this very nice E43 to review for you guys today. Let me know your thoughts on the E43 in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.